Welcome to Stop, Time to Improv. I'm Mary Scott with Business Riff, and I want startup businesses to be wildly successful. Today, we're going to be talking with Ashley Schmitz from Each Penny Bookkeeping, because if you don't watch your money, you can't actually succeed. So thanks for coming, Ashley.
Oh, thanks for having me today, Mary.
That's great. So let's talk about bookkeeping. What kinds of things do startups really need to pay attention to?
The first thing that I would say that startups really need to pay attention to is actually where you're spending money. When you're starting up a business, there's going to be money out before there's money in, but the only way that there's money out is usually out of an owner's pocket. So if you're not tracking that as an investment into your business, then you're not paying yourself back for those things. And that's the first thing that you really should do, is be tracking the money that you personally are putting into it so that you can be making that back. And it's not an expense and it's not a line item on your tax return when you're going to file your taxes.
I noticed that one of the things that I did when I started my business was when I made a deposit from my personal account into the business account, I used to categorize it as loan from owner. Is that a good idea, or would you suggest something else?
As long as it's showing as some form of equity in a balance sheet that you are keeping track of as loan to yourself, then that should be fine. Verbiage really isn't the biggest deal, but as long as it's an equity account for you, that's really where it needs to be.
Okay, so keep track of what money you put into your business. So then it's about expenses. And should people pay attention to certain things before they go other places?
All of your basic expenses that come from starting up your business, filing with your state, hiring a lawyer if you do that, all of the beginning expenses that come from your startup, make sure you're tracking those, because it's okay for you as a business, especially if you're starting later in the year or if it's, slow getting off the ground. It's okay for your business to show a loss on that tax return, as long as eventually you're coming into the clear and you're coming positive. It's okay for you to show a loss that you started a business, but it doesn't need to be an ongoing thing. But definitely tracking those first beginning expenses when it comes to getting an advice from an accountant or a lawyer or things of that nature, making sure that the phone that you're using, the paper that you're buying, all of the things, the pens, the cards, all of those little things that people just, oh, it's a couple $100 here, it's $50 there. Those things really add up to the bottom line of what your business really is doing.
So it helps to have a dedicated credit card that's just used for business expenses, right?
Yes. And so most people don't have the ability to get just a strict business credit card from the beginning. And so when you're looking at this and starting a business, it's always good to keep everything separate. And if you can get a credit card in your business name, that's wonderful. But if you can't, keeping one dedicated card to just use for your business, so you're separating those, so you're able to show the separation from the beginning and the get-go, is always what I recommend to small business owners at the beginning of their venture. Make sure that everything is just separate. You use that card just for business.
Yes, one of the things I did was make sure that my business account was in a whole different institution from my personal account. And it was really easy to get a credit card on the business account that I could then use just for the business.
You don't always have to go to separate institutions, but definitely having separate checking accounts, having separate savings accounts, all of those different things, keeping all of that, making sure that's connected to your EIN and registered through the state, and going through all of those steps with the financial institutions, and figuring out your DUNS number from the beginning and how to build that credit, because everybody knows about credit from your personal and how it's associated with your social. But the best way to build your business credit with your DUNS number and making sure that you're then able to obtain financing through that, instead of always having to put your personal social on the line for those things.
Okay. And how do people get a DUNS number?
So how I did it was I did it through my lawyer, and they set it up for me. So I don't know exactly. It's just a website, your DUNS Duns and Bradstreet number, I think is what it's called for sure. But I know it's a Duns number that much.
Which is a way, it's just a way to get business credit separate from your personal credit. And until you've established business credit, your personal credit is your credit. So you have to pay attention to keeping things clean, right?
Yes, always.
Is there a common mistake that people make with their bookkeeping?
The most common thing that I see from the beginning is people thinking that it's okay to just, I'm in the beginning of starting my business. Let me just use it all for my personal. It's okay that I'm buying things personally out of my business, vice versa from your personal, and people just really commingle things. And so just establishing that good foundation from the beginning that you're keeping things separate. This is how I do it. Make it easy for yourself to when you're starting to make money and you need to be paying yourself to be able to transfer that money to your personal when you need personal things, when you need personal expenses paid for, but make sure that you're tracking which way everything's going.
You almost have to set your personal self up as a vendor.
Right.
Where you are actually having expenses paid and invoices sent and that kind of stuff, just to keep it really, really clean.
Yeah, it's really about just the discipline of making sure that you're separating business and personal.
Is there a piece of bookkeeping software you recommend or a particular way you recommend people get started?
So I really do love the QuickBooks system. I love QuickBooks Online. I feel like it's really convenient. And in the way that the world has gone in the last couple of years, I really do like the convenience of being able to click onto any browser, be able to see what's going on in finance, be able to do it. So I would definitely recommend that type of software. And if you can connect with somebody that is a pro advisor, it's usually good to get under them. You don't need somebody from the beginning if you can't afford it for them to be doing all of your bookkeeping. But it's always nice to be under a pro advisor in that software, because then you have a trusted somebody to ask questions, to show you how to set that up. Invest in taking the time in learning the software so that you can at least do it yourself and not create a big jumbled mess, because that's the worst thing, is coming into tax time, having to file an extension, being overly exerted with running a business, but then being so stressed about your finances because you haven't been tracking it, and then having to write everything in an Excel spreadsheet. Like, that's the worst that I see for people. So making sure that you're just setting up good habits from the beginning. If it's not a bookkeeper doing it, you staying on top of it yourself, making that discipline.
Right. And sometimes having a bookkeeper is more effective than having an accountant. Right.
That, I like to describe to people, because people are like, oh, a bookkeeper, an accountant, they're the same thing. They're really not. A bookkeeper is the day-to-day gritty, getting into all of the finances, knowing what's going on in your numbers, that really day-to-day dirty person. Your accountant is who you see quarterly, probably more likely yearly, that you just hand all of the dirty work to and say, make it look pretty on a tax return. That's what I need from you. And so I think the reason why I decided to call myself a bookkeeper instead of an accountant is because I like that day-to-day nitty-gritty stuff. I like to know what's going on in finances. I like to talk to people about what's going on and where are their struggles and how are they feeling and what can we do better. So, biasly saying, absolutely, I think a bookkeeper is way more important from the beginning than an accountant. So.
Right. And your bookkeeper is someone who can help you keep most of the money you actually earn as a startup.
Right. That's the biggest thing, is we want to be keeping our money. We want to know how we should be utilizing our money. We obviously know that everybody has to pay taxes, but if you have a good bookkeeper in your corner that can be talking through with you about where are you spending your money, what's a great use of it, making sure that you're keeping it in-house, that's the biggest priority. To I think every small business owner is keeping as much money as they can. You always want to pay yourself first.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Any parting thoughts you want startups to really remember?
Again, just being very disciplined in just keeping good records, keeping things clean. I think that is the best way to set yourself up for success.
Thank you so much, Ashley Schmitz from Each Penny Bookkeeping. This is Mary Scott with Business Riff. I want startups to be wildly successful. So book a synergy call with me at businessriff.com. And thank you. Join us again for Stuck, Time to Improv.